Last time, we decoded the wild part of DisneylandForward. The resort's planning rules now allow a height hierarchy where up to 4 themed icons can reach 300 feet. So today is the follow-on. If Disney ever spends one of those skyline slots on the Western expansion zone, what's the most likely IP that actually earns a 300-foot icon? I think Frozen is a leading candidate because it's extremely popular, family-friendly, as well as one of the few Disney IPs where a giant mountain and a glowing palace doesn't strictly feel like theme park math. It just feels inevitable. But what would a Frozen-themed land that leverages a 300-foot icon look like in Anaheim? And would it actually fit in the Disneyland resort? Quick recap. Disneyland Forward is a planning framework. It doesn't announce specific rides. It basically gives Disney flexibility to place theme park attractions, hotels, dining, and retail across the Disneyland Resort footprint over time without having to re-entitle the entire property every time plans evolve. In the adopted Disneyland Resort specific plan language, there is a planned building height hierarchy. Most theme park elements would be in the 40 to 250 foot range, with up to 4 structural thematic elements or icons allowed up to 300 feet to help with visual orientation. For comparison, the Matterhorn in Disneyland only reaches 147 feet, so these icons could effectively double that size. Based on what Disney has already built in other resorts around the world, what can we reasonably speculate for them to build in order to take advantage of the 300-foot height limit? Here's the pattern. Across the major Disney resorts, Frozen has a permanent parks presence, usually with a real ride, not just character meet and greets. Florida has Frozen Ever After at Epcot, an Arendelle boat ride that literally takes you up the North Mountain to Elsa's Ice Palace. Tokyo Disney Sea's Fantasy Springs includes Frozen Kingdom, anchored by Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey, also a boat attraction that follows the film's story. Hong Kong built a full world of Frozen, Disney's first Frozen-themed land, anchored by a Frozen Ever After boat ride and the Wandering Oak and Sliding Sleighs family coaster. Disneyland Paris is opening its own world of Frozen on March 29, 2026, again built around Arendelle, the North Mountain, and Frozen Ever After, plus a show over Arendelle Bay. And then there's Anaheim. At Disneyland Resort, Frozen is just character appearances, like Anna and Elsa's royal welcome in DCA's animation building and in the various parades. But there's still no permanent Frozen land or ride. That makes Anaheim the most noticeable gap in the Frozen portfolio. Frozen isn't fading into nostalgia. Disney has a public theatrical date for Frozen 3, November 4th, 2027. And Disney has further announced that Frozen 4 is in development. If you're going to build a massive family land, you want an IP that's not just loved, it's future-proof for the next decade and beyond. So if Disney is building a world of Frozen in Anaheim, what would that look like? Here's the West Side concept. Pure speculation, but built on design logic Disney already uses worldwide. You enter through a tight portal that hides the real-world edges. Then it opens into 3 big beats. 1. An Arendelle hub, your Cars Land style main street for food, shops, and character appearances. 2. A fjord promenade, wide waterfront circulation, scenic seating pockets, bridges, and a clear sightline to the icon. 3. North Mountain crowned by Elsa's Ice Palace, our skyline anchor. And this is where the 300-foot allowance comes into play. The icon isn't purely a facade. The icon is a container for attractions. Given this, what attractions could Disney build to fully leverage this icon? For the first ride anchor, if Disney wants to build a true spend one skyline slot moment, you build the ride inside the mountain so that the height is doing real work, not just aesthetics. Here are 2 plausible directions for an e-ticket North Mountain thrill ride. Option A, an Expedition Everest style coaster, but Frozen themed. You're racing through a storm over the North Mountain in sleds as Elsa tries to contain the chaos. Height buys you a dramatic climb and plunge back into the ice caverns. For clarification, building this coaster doesn't imply a 300-foot direct drop. It just means that the North Mountain and Ice Palace structure will rise up to somewhere in the 250 to 300-foot range, with a maximum drop in the 80-foot range, similar to Expedition Everest, or a more gradual descent similar to the Matterhorn. Option B, or if Disney wants family-first thrills, they could build a trackless multi-level dark ride that uses vertical movement inside the Ice Palace, something like the Ice Palace forms around you. A vertical lift scene, upper level show moments, and still delivering one signature drop moment back into the fjord caverns for the finale. Second anchor would be a Frozen Ever After style boat ride. This is the capacity engine, a musical fjord voyage through Arendelle and the North Mountain to the Ice Palace, with small forward and back plunges that still read as family thrills. It's also the global consistency move. Anaheim finally gets the version of Frozen the other resorts already treat as permanent. Frozen also gives you a built-in nighttime identity. You don't need a huge fireworks scale show, just a repeatable land moment. Picture a 3 to 5 minute Frozen lights on the fjord sequence. The mountain wakes up with aurora color, snowflake projections rippling across the Ice Palace, and the whole promenade becomes a glowing fountain-filled waterfront you can loop all night. And Disney is already designing Frozen districts around a show over the water. Disneyland Paris features a spectacular show as part of its World of Frozen experience. Now the real question, does a land like this actually fit in the Disneyland Resort Western Expansion Zone, especially the area that's currently the Simba parking lot and its adjacent support space? First, what Simba is today. Disney's own parking info identifies the Simba Lot as downtown Disney District parking, located off Disneyland Drive between West Catella Avenue and Pixar Place Hotel. Disney and the city of Anaheim don't publish a simple guest-facing acreage number for Simba, so any acreage we're talking about here is just an estimate. Since there's no publicly listed official acreage for the Simba Lot, let's just conservatively estimate from mapping and planning data that it's somewhere in the 18 to 22 acre range. And that's before you talk about adjacent real-world needs, service roads, emergency egress, setbacks, utilities, and the edge treatments DisneylandForward emphasizes when theme park uses sit closer to streets or neighbors. So what does 18 to 22 acres mean in Disney terms? Cars Land is about 12 acres, and it fits 3 attractions plus major rock work and dining. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge spans more than 14 acres, and it holds 2 major attractions plus dense theming. Pandora in Animal Kingdom is a 12-acre land with 2 anchor rides and heavy environment. So West Side area in the high teens to low 20s is absolutely in the right league for a 2-anchor Frozen district, especially if the mountain is designed as a show building, keeping big ride volumes vertical instead of sprawling sideways. For further comparison, World of Frozen in Paris is in the 7 to 9 acre range, and Expedition Everest in Animal Kingdom has about a 6.5 acre footprint. So having a World of Frozen land with an Expedition Everest scale icon would roughly max out at 15 acres. So it looks like World of Frozen can easily fit into Disneyland's Simba parking lot, but is there actually room for more IPs to share this space with Frozen? And what would that look like? If you want something more concrete than pure armchair Imagineering, there's one official breadcrumb hiding in plain sight: the noise contour diagrams Disney submitted to the city as part of the DisneylandForward Environmental Impact Report. To be clear, these maps aren't a ride announcement. They're essentially, if we build attractions here, what does it sound like at the property line? So Disney uses a conceptual layout with generic placeholders: family rides, indoor show buildings, outdoor shows, and one big centerpiece. And in this specific exhibit, the most notable new shape on the map is a mountain-like structure literally labeled Thrill Ride Outdoor. The exhibit does note that the scenario is conceptual and doesn't necessarily represent the actual future build-out, but it's still telling. When Disney needed a worst-case headline attraction to model for this zone, they didn't sketch a flat box. They sketched a central, landmark-scale thrill ride footprint. That's why the Frozen North Mountain idea clicks so cleanly here. Swap that generic thrill ride mountain for a snow and ice icon, and suddenly the 300-foot concept feels less like fan fiction and more like a plausible use of the West Side canvas. And the other big takeaway, the same diagram shows room for multiple attractions around the anchor, not just one big e-ticket. So if Disney ever decides to go big and more diverse on the West Side, this could evolve into something actually closer to Tokyo Disney Sea's Fantasy Springs, a centerpiece icon that headlines the land, plus a whole supporting lineup of rides, food, and atmosphere from different IPs, with Frozen's North Mountain as that centerpiece. Now the realism check. If you build tall in the real world, you have to think about aircraft safety. How could Disney accommodate this without ruining the magic with ugly blinking red lights? The FAA's general guidance is that structures over 200 feet above ground level should normally be marked and or lighted through an FAA aeronautical study that can recommend different outcomes depending on location and risk. The key detail, it's not automatically ugly blinking red lights or nothing. FAA guidance describes multiple lighting systems, including wide obstruction lights that can be steady burning and or flashing at night, plus other systems that can vary by height and context. So the Imagineering workaround is design, not denial. You can build the Ice Palace crown so any required obstruction lighting is 1. Minimal and shielded from the primary guest sightlines down the promenade. 2. Integrated into the show language, tiny ice star points that read like frozen magic, not hardware. And 3. Placed where aircraft need to see it, but guests rarely do. If Disney ever goes tall, FAA compliance becomes another invisible system, like sprinklers and speakers engineered to disappear. Is all of this a strong enough case for Frozen as a West Side Disneyland Forward heavyweight? Frozen is already a global parks pillar. Florida, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Paris, while Anaheim still doesn't have a permanent Frozen attraction. The story naturally justifies a giant skyline icon, North Mountain, and an ice palace, and the adopted planning language explicitly allows up to 4 300-foot themed icons across this resort core. And the footprint question, even on a Simba Lot sized area, a 2-anchor Frozen district is plausible, especially if Disney phases it around parking and circulation realities. Now I want your take. If Disneyland gets up to 4 skyline icons, do you spend one on Frozen? And if you do, does it belong in the West Side Zone or somewhere else in the Disneyland and DCA theme park footprint? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.